The time of the empath suffering in silence is finished. The days when they were taught that kindness must come with putting up with pain, and that to love means to save someone even while that person destroys you, has ended. We used to think that if we just kept giving, kept understanding a little more, and forgiving one more time, things would finally change, but they did not. The only thing that changed was us, from a soul that listened. We became a shelter for someone else's darkness. From a heart that cared, we turned into a mirror showing another person's fake image of power. But there comes a moment when the empath wakes up, not with screams or fighting, but in conscious silence. This is the silence of one who has seen the truth and no longer wishes to play a part in that show. Carl Jung once said that you cannot defeat darkness by hating it. You only win against it by looking straight into it and realizing it no longer scares you. When the empath reaches that point, they are no longer controlled by guilt or choked by the need for approval. They do not look for revenge on the narcissist. They simply take back their energy from the game, and that is when the fake image falls apart. In this video, we will look at 7 clear signs that you have truly defeated the narcissist, not through a battle, but through awareness, peace, and a sacred letting go. Because the empath's real victory is never about making someone bow down. It is about taking back the power to decide who you are. The first clear sign is that the narcissist pulls back in silence when you are no longer their fuel. There was a time when their silence hurt your heart. A single seen message without a reply could send you spinning into blaming yourself. You wondered what you did wrong or if you were too sensitive. You got used to chasing, to trying to fix an absence that spoke louder than words. And that is exactly where their power came from, your reaction. A narcissist does not live on love. They live on your reactions, your confusion, your pain, and your attempts to prove yourself. All of it is fuel that reminds them they exist. To them, your attention is like air. Your silence feels like they cannot breathe. But one day, something inside you changes. Not because you have turned cold, but because you are tired. Tired of explaining, tired of carrying other people's feelings, tired of loving like you owe someone a debt. And then you stop. This time, when they go silent, you stay silent too. When they try to push you, you do not react. When they test the waters with unclear messages, you just smile, calm and unshaken. Not because you are using a strategy, but because you simply no longer have the energy to play the old role. You have seen the game, and in that moment, everything flips. Imagine a familiar room where they once bragged about their wins, voice loud, eyes shining with self-satisfaction. Today, you walk in and say nothing. You do not force a laugh. You do not smooth over the tension. You do not make yourself smaller. You simply exist, peaceful, and suddenly the air changes like morning light, coming through the shades, quietly showing every crack, every speck of dust, every old smell. They feel exposed, they fidget, change topics, give awkward laughs, their eyes looking away. They might pretend to be busy, uncaring, or blame you. But inside, they are panicking because they cannot read you anymore. You have become still, and stillness is what they fear most. For them, silence is not peace. It is a mirror. Carl Jung once wrote that people will do anything, no matter how silly, to avoid facing their own soul. And the moment you stop reacting is the moment they are forced to face that soul empty, alone, and afraid. So they retreat quietly, no announcement, no goodbye. They will vanish for a day, a week, maybe longer. No texts, no explanations. They want you to panic, to reach out, to ask, to apologize, because that is how they know they still matter. But this time you do not. You let the silence tell its own story. And somewhere in that empty room, they feel it. The real disconnection. No more of your energy, your look, your reactions. Only themselves alone with the empty space they used to cover with manipulation. That is why they pull away. Not because they are at peace, but because your light now burns their shadow. You do not need to fight to win. You just stop playing. And in the game of power, not participating is the final move. In that moment, you know you have moved beyond it. Not because you destroyed them, but because you no longer need them to feel whole. You have walked out of the maze. They are still trying to rebuild with lies. And within that silence, a truth whispers soft but strong. They never truly controlled you. They only fed on the way you reacted. And now you do not react anymore. This leads to the second sign, where their eyes turn cold. They no longer scare you. After you take back your energy, the narcissist often goes silent for a while, but eventually they return, not to reconnect, but to test whether the puppet still moves. That is when you see those familiar eyes again, the ones that once melted you, made you believe they really loved you. But this time, something has changed. Their look has lost its power. You used to see pain in it, a bit of vulnerability, a false cry for rescue that made you forget your boundaries. But now awakened, you recognize it for what it is, not emotional depth, but the depth of emptiness. When they look at you now, you see it clearly. That look does not hold love, it holds fear, fear of losing control. The narcissist grows uneasy. They try their old tricks, the cold stare, the smirk, the talking down tone. Once these things made you shrink, fall silent, or blame yourself. But now you do not. You no longer seek their approval. You no longer fear their judgment. You just stand there calm, grounded, looking back, not with hate, but with truth. And in that instant, something inside them cracks. The person who once believed they could make you shake with a glance now faces a version of you they cannot figure out. Steady, independent, and emotionally out of reach. Their eyes change, no longer weapons, but mirrors showing their own helplessness. You may see anger, confusion, even fear in those eyes. They are staring at someone they can no longer reach, and they do not know what to do with that. Once their silence made you feel guilty. Their coldness made you work harder, doing everything to fix it. But now when they look at you with that icy stare, you feel no fear, only clarity. You see a person holding on to a role in a play that is already ended. Carl Jung once wrote that nothing scares the master more than the slave realizing he is free. And indeed, in the moment you stop being controlled by that gaze, a deep freedom takes root inside you. From here, they might respond in two ways, by trying to make you feel guilty or by pretending they do not care. But both come from the same source, the fear of losing emotional power. And you finally understand that look no longer defines your worth. Then comes the third sign, which is when they start copying you, but only on the surface. At first, it may confuse you. The person who once mocked you for being too sensitive now talks about compassion. The one who called you too serious now posts about healing, growth, and positive energy. The one who made fun of you for reading, writing, or meditating now proudly does the same. But when you step back and watch, you realize they have not changed. They are copying you, not to become better, but to regain control. When they can no longer make you fall, they try to become you, believing that by wearing your skin, they can take back the power they lost. A narcissist has no true self. They are a mix of borrowed identities pieced together from the people they use. When you leave, they lose their main source of identity. And instead of facing that empty space, they do what they always do, steal energy that is not theirs. Carl Jung said that what we do not possess within ourselves, we seek to possess in others. They are the living proof of that truth. They will begin to speak like you, laugh like you, post like you, even dress like you. They might even tell others that they were the ones who taught you those things. It is silly, but it is really their fear speaking, because when they lost you, they lost the best version of themselves, the one they had stolen through reflection. You will see them showing off a new image, a changed person, deep and spiritually awake. But look closer. The eyes are still empty, the tone still cold, because they can copy behavior, but they cannot copy a soul. They can talk about love, but they cannot feel it. They can preach freedom, yet still fear their own silence. They can pretend to be awake, yet remain asleep, dreaming inside the costume they borrowed from you. And you, once the one who suffered, now stand in quiet observation. No need to prove, no need to rage. You simply see the truth. You are real. They are not. You build peace through facing things. They try to rebuild it through copying. You live. They perform. The moment they start copying you is actually their loudest confession. They are saying without words that they want to be you because they cannot be themselves. You will know the fourth sign when they begin losing control and try everything to pull you back into the mess. After the copying fails, after every attempt to play you falls flat, the narcissist begins to feel their worst fear. They have lost control. And when a narcissist loses control, they do not disappear. They explode. At first, they return with fake softness, a simple text saying they just want to talk for a minute, a harmless check-in asking how you have been, even something tender saying they miss you. But behind those words is not love. It is a test. They are checking to see whether the supply still reacts, whether you will still hand over your energy. If you reply, even with something short, they know the game is still on. But if you remain silent, if you no longer fall into the trap of reacting emotionally, they start to come apart from the role of the sorry one. They shift to the victim and then quickly the attacker. One day, they send a deep apology. The next, they post hints casting you as the bad guy. They spread lies, twist things, and retell the story as the betrayed one. The single goal is to trigger a reaction, because to them, your reaction, anger, or pity is fuel. They do not need your love, they just need your attention. Your attention is air to their dying ego. When you cut off that air, they cannot breathe. Carl Jung once said that what you resist persists. They understand this naturally, so they push you to drag you back into the emotional ring. They will claim they are suffering, that no one understands them, that they cannot sleep, that they are sick or sad, and that only you can save them. But this is not a true cry for help. It is the ego terrified of falling apart. Someone who truly wants to change can handle silence. A narcissist cannot. Silence forces them to face what they have always avoided themselves. So they switch through tactics like attack, self-pity, even showing off someone new, anything to make you react. But this time, you are different. You do not need to win, to prove, or to save face. You only need not to return. You have learned that your reaction is their reward and silence is your boundary. They will rage, then soften, then rage again. A non-stop cycle of mental breakdown. And in that storm, you stay steady. Not because you are numb, but because you have chosen peace over drama. When they grasp that you are no longer playing, that you are no longer the audience in their play, that is when they truly crumble. You see it clearly. Their words lose weight. Their eyes grow empty. Their tone turns desperate. They cling to the past to keep a bit of power, but the past is now only an echo in an empty room. You realize you do not need revenge, proof, or to teach them a lesson. Your silence is the lesson. By refusing to react, you stop feeding their fake image. By holding your calm in the storm, you move to a level they cannot reach. And when they panic and try every trick to drag you back, you know you are no longer in the game. You do not have to end them because they are already ending themselves, unable to bear the truth that the power they once had existed only as long as you believed in it. The fifth sign appears when the world starts to see through their mask. Once you stop reacting, the narcissist loses the only energy that keeps their self-image alive. But their collapse does not stop there. When they cannot control you, they start losing control elsewhere, and then the thing they fear most happens. Other people begin to see what you saw. The mask starts to crack. At first, it is small. A careless sentence that shows a contradiction, an overreaction in a normal situation, a look that no longer carries fake confidence. Those who once looked up to them start to doubt. Those who once trusted them sense something is wrong. And once the light of truth touches something, it spreads. The social face they spent years building, the perfect friend, ideal partner, loved colleague, begins to break. They try to patch it with words, smiles, and clever excuses. But the harder they try, the more it shows. The strain in the voice, the falseness in the eyes, excuses that no longer match reality. All of it helps others recognize the trickery they missed before. A narcissist lives by image. When the image tears, it feels like being skinned alive. They do not live truthfully. They exist through the eyes of others. Lose that attention and they lose the ego. Carl Jung wrote that the mask we wear before society is the persona. And when the persona falls apart, the ego is forced to face the shadow it denied. In this phase, they will do anything to save the fake image. They will desperately replay the good person role, find new people to replace you, even pretend to change to win back trust. But time is no longer on their side. Once truth is seen, it cannot be unseen. Every gesture is now looked at in a new light, the light of waking up. Their words might sound right, but they no longer feel real. They can still smile, but the smile does not reach their eyes. And the very people who once adored them begin to step back just as you did. They will blame you, insisting you expose them or ruin their image. But you know the truth. You did not do anything. It was truth itself that undid them. You simply stopped reacting enough for everything to reveal itself. Narcissists believe they can control the story, that if they speak cleverly, people will believe. But they forget truth does not need a defender. It only needs silence. And your silence is the strongest proof. When the mask falls, they do not just lose you, they lose the stage, the audience, the role. And there they stand alone amid the ruins of the image they worshipped. You, once their mirror, have stepped out of the play and now watch with the calm of someone who understands. You never needed to take the mask off anyone because truth always finds its way. This moves into the sixth sign, when they become quietly obsessed with you. When the mask is gone and no one believes the image anymore, the narcissist enters the phase they dread most, being forgotten. They once believed they were the center, admired, remembered, irreplaceable. But when no one reacts, when people begin to avoid them, when you live peacefully without mentioning them, a huge empty space opens inside. And in that empty space, you become an obsession. They cannot tolerate the thought that they no longer have power over you. So they start watching you in silence, not out of love, but to confirm they still exist in your world. They will check your page, see what you post, who you laugh with, how you are living. They cannot stand seeing you well, but they cannot bear your silence either. Everything you do becomes a kick for their starving ego. Jung said that what we deny in ourselves returns from the outside as fate. You are the mirror they tried to break, now the image they cannot escape. They think of you more than ever, not from love, but because you represent what they can never become: truth, peace, freedom. Deep down, they know you have won not by power, but by not needing them. That knowledge makes them fear you, crave you, resent you, and attempt to take you back all at once. It is a reverse addiction, addicted to the one who exposed their inner emptiness. They will not admit it. They will pretend you do not matter. They will make fun of you, lie about you, or show off someone new to prove they have moved on. But behind it all is a mind that cannot escape your image. They miss the feeling of power when they controlled your emotions, the way you used to react, the admiration in your eyes, the proof that they were special. Without that, they feel unreal. You may sense this energy at times, a feeling, a sudden message, a hidden account watching, a strange appearance in a place you used to go. Not coincidence. It is their ego trying to reattach to the old emotional connection. But here is what matters. You are no longer pulled in. You have learned to stand inside your own space. You do not need to lock every door or run. You simply keep your peace like a small flame shielded from the wind. When they see you calm, free, and bright without them, their greatest fear takes shape. They realize you are real and they were only a role. That is the moment the narcissist truly falls apart. Not because you punish them, but because they cannot bear the truth that they no longer matter. You have become a symbol of what they cannot reach, a light that needs no audience. And while they obsess, you live peacefully, freely, not as a survivor, but as someone reborn. Finally, the seventh sign is when they realize you have truly disappeared from their world. When every attempt to return has failed, when their apologies no longer soften you, when their attacks no longer upset you, when copying only tires them out. The narcissist finally faces what they once believed impossible. You have truly disappeared. Not disappeared from social media, not blocked or hidden, but disappeared from their inner world, the space you once completely filled. Now inside their mind, everything feels empty. They still try to think of you, but the energy has changed. The familiar feeling they once fed on, the thrill of control, the pleasure of seeing you react, has faded into a ghost. They try to remember, but what they recall is not you. It is the version of you they once had power over. And when they realize that version no longer exists, they know the game is over. This is the quietest yet cruelest stage for them. No more controlling messages, no more excuses, no more blaming others. Only themselves naked before the empty space you once filled. They will try to find someone new, but everything feels flat. They will attempt new relationships, but each one is just a failed copy of an old fake image. Because what they really crave is not love. It is the sense of power they once felt when you were still there. And when they cannot take back that feeling, the collapse begins from within. Carl Jung once said that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. For the narcissist, this is the moment when the darkness swallows them whole. They are forced to face everything they once ran from, the emptiness, the insecurity, the shattered mirror of their false self. With no one left to blame, no one left to project onto, they are left only with themselves and the truth. As for you, the one who once endured, once loved, once sacrificed, you have gone far beyond the idea of winning. You no longer need their apology, their recognition, or their understanding. Because deep down, you know they will never understand what only a real soul can feel. You have learned the greatest lesson that endings are not always dramatic goodbyes. Sometimes they are quiet moments of peace when you realize you simply feel nothing for them anymore. No hate, no love, no longing for change, just silence. And in that silence, you realize you no longer live inside their story. You have returned to being the main character of your own life. Everything they once did to make you feel small has become fuel for your freedom. You no longer need proof that they are suffering. Because when you no longer need them to hurt for you to feel at peace, that is when you have truly healed. When the narcissist realizes that you vanish not from sight, but from their energy system, that is when they encounter their deepest fear, being invisible. You, once their mirror, have now become the light they can never touch. You have not just escaped them. You have risen above the whole system of manipulation. You have risen above your own fear and stepped into real life where no one holds power over your soul anymore. And that is the final sign when you are no longer a character in their story, but the author of your own. You do not need to win because you are free. In the end, after all the emotional storms, the power games, and the endless push and pull, you realize something deep. True victory does not come from making the narcissist suffer. It comes from no longer needing them at all. You do not need them to understand. You do not need them to apologize. You do not need them to prove anything. Because as long as you still need that, you are still tied to them. Freedom arrives in silence. There is no clapping, no dramatic revenge, no movie-like closure, just an ordinary morning when you wake up and realize your heart no longer feels heavy. You do not check your phone. You do not wonder where they are. You do not replay old conversations in your head. You are simply free. And that freedom does not come from defeating them. It comes from winning over the part of yourself that once allowed them to exist in your life. Carl Jung once said that there is no awakening without pain. And it is true. You have walked through that pain, not to become bitter, but to become awake. You have learned to see without reacting, to love without losing yourself, to forgive without returning. You understand now that real light never needs to prove itself. It simply is. As for them, the one who once thrived on controlling the emotions of others, they are now just a distant shadow, a side character in your awakening story. They may still perform, still speak, still search for new audiences, but you are no longer part of that stage. You have left it behind, carrying with you awareness, peace, and inner power. Your journey with the narcissist was never just about pain and betrayal. It was a special beginning for the soul. It forced you to face wounds, fears, and boundaries you once avoided. And in facing them, you became stronger, clearer, and more real than ever before. Victory is not about making them pay. Victory is standing in your own light, calm, unbothered, needing no validation, needing no audience. Because when you can look back at it all with a gentle smile, without bitterness, without regret, that is when you have truly healed. You have not just escaped them. You have escaped the old version of yourself, the one who confused love with control. And in that stillness, you finally understand you never had to win against anyone. You only ever had to return to yourself.